Horatio P. Spafford lost most of his wealth in the Great Chicago Fire, was recovering, and his family was planning an outing to England for some vacation time, and he stayed behind and sent his wife and children ahead. Partway across the Atlantic, in a storm, the ship was lost. It ran into a Norwegian iron-hulled tanker, crashed into the hull, and the ship sank. She found something, but she prayed with her daughters when the wreck happened before it sank, that they would either be saved or this would turn into something to glorify God. She found some wreckage hung on, and somebody from the Norwegian ship in a rowboat was going around, found her, and she sent home the telegraph, that now famous message, saved alone. What now? So he booked passage to go join her in England, and he asked the ship captain to stop at the point where the ship had been lost. And looking over the rail, those words of this song came to his mind. Peace like a river, or when sea billows roll, it's well with my soul. He had a comprehension that any church around the country that reads a 3-year lectionary series, it's likely that Hebrews 11 verse 1 will be read this coming Sunday, and it goes like this. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And this last Sunday, I went to Ecclesiastes, because if you want to read a couple verses of somebody who's kind of hopeless, and we won't have time to go into why he was hopeless, but he sure went down his own trail. This was Solomon, and he reads, this is chapter 1, verse 2. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless, everything is meaningless. And he goes on later on, I, the teacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I devoted myself to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under heaven. What a heavy burden God has laid on men. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I thought to myself, look, I have grown and increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also to the madness of folly. But I learned this too. It's a chasing after the wind. In chapter 2, he says this as well. So I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of this is meaningless, like chasing after the wind. I hated all the things that I had toiled for under the sun, because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether it will be a wise man or a fool. Yet he'll have control over all the works which I have poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless. So my heart began to despair over all my toilsome labor under the sun. For a man may do his work with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and then he must leave all he owns to someone who has not worked for it. This too is meaningless and a great misfortune. What does man get for all the toil and anxious striving with which he labors under the sun? All his days his work is pain and grief. Even at night his mind does not rest. This too is meaningless. A man can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his work. This too I see is from the hand of God. For without him who can eat or find enjoyment? To the man who pleases God, God gives him wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Hebrews seems to say something altogether different. There's a certainty and assurance of the things you don't see, the spiritual realm. And so my mind went back to the the story of, I marked a couple pages here, the story of Elijah and Elisha. Remember Elijah, powerful prophet in Israel? He has this duel with 400 prophets of Baal. This was the challenge. Whoever is God could call down fire on the sacrifice. That was God. That would be the winner. Okay? So they started in the morning. They're dancing and shouting. And at one point, Elijah jeers them. Maybe he's deaf. Shout louder. Of course, nothing happens. And then he says, okay, God's turn. He lays up some stone for an altar, puts the wood on it, puts the sacrificial animal on it, digs a trench, pours water over it until it's saturated and the trench is full. And the fire comes and consumes the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the water. And Israel says, oh, God's God. So they take all 400 of prophets of Baal, which the king's wife Jezebel had taken care of all the time, and had them all killed down the river. Well, Jezebel, to say the least, is not happy about that. So she says, before the day's out, you're going to be like them. So Elijah takes off, and he moans like this. I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me. This is when he ran away from Jezebel, and he complains on the way out. That's what he says. He said, So God tells him, he goes and he hides in a cave. And God says, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rock before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord wasn't in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. Now, wouldn't you expect to see him in all that kind of activity? Wind that blows rocks apart, you think, okay, surely God's in that. Earthquake, fire. And the Lord was not in. After the fire came, some translations say, a still small breeze, gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face, and he went out and stood on the mountain. And the Lord says, what are you doing here, Elijah? And he repeats the same complaint. Well, it's me. I'm the only one left. They're trying to kill me too. I wish I was dead. And God says, Elijah, I want you to go back the way you came. That verse has just hung there for me so many times. Because sometimes on the way forward, running from the queen, I mean, everything looks like it's going to leave tread marks up your back, right? But he says, I want you to go back. In other words, sometimes we're not going to be able to go forward until we confront our fears and our failures of the past. And so he tells him to do three things. He says, I want you to anoint Elisha as prophet after you. I want you to anoint Hazael king over Aram, and anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel. So he goes and he finds Elisha, and he throws his prophet's mantle on him, and he walks off. Elisha says, I'll be right with you. And he says, no, but you don't have to do what you want to do. It says Elisha was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. I don't know if you can get a picture of that in your head. I'm not sure what that means. 12. Do better with that. So he takes all his implements, breaks them up, piles them up, slaughters his oxen, has a celebration, and he follows Elijah. And he follows Elijah. And then one day, in this Second Kings then, Elijah says, you know, I'm going to go to Gilgal. Well, Gilgal was a place where when they came into the land, it says when they came in, those who had been born during the years in the wilderness had not been circumcised. And so they're going to dedicate themselves to God. They're going to be circumcised. That's at Gilgal. And he says, I'm going to, because the word sounds like roll back. I'm going to roll back the reproach of Egypt that's on you. I'm going to go to Gilgal. Why don't you stay here? Elisha said, no, I'm sticking with you. And then he says, okay, I'm going to go to, so that Gilgal represents dedication. Okay. Then he said, I'm going to go over to Bethel. Bethel, the place where Jacob is leaving home. And he has this dream where the angels are descending. God begins to say, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And at that point, Jacob basically says, okay, God, if you do those things, you can be my God. But if you read the text, he says, the God of my father Abraham, the God of my father Isaac, but not his own God. It's not until he's coming back that he wrestles with God at the Jabbok that he finally engages with God himself. But it's a place of promise. And Elijah said, I'm going to go to Bethel. Why don't you stay here? Elisha, no, I'm sticking with you. And then he says, okay, I'm going to go to Jericho, place of warfare. Why don't you stay here? Elisha says, no. And the school of prophets come out and say, don't you know that your master's going to be taken from you today? He says, yeah, I know, shut up. He didn't want them talking to him about it. And finally then, Elijah said, I'm going to go to the Jordan, which is the place of crossing over into the next season. Israel's life, his life, Elisha's life. He takes his mantle, Elijah does, touches the Jordan water, and it opens up, and the two of them walk across. The school of prophets are on this side, watch this happen. They get to the other side over there, and Elijah asks Elisha, who's stuck with him. Okay, Elijah's been going here and there and wherever else. And Elisha is just right there with him. What do you want me to do for you? And Elisha said, I want a double measure of the spirit that's upon you. Because Elisha had seen something in Elijah's life that he had not yet seen, but he wanted. He knew the source. He knew the source of Elijah's strength and purpose. He says, I want a double measure of that. And Elijah's comment is, well, that's a hard thing, but if you see me going up, you have it. If you don't, you don't. So it says, Elijah went up in the whirlwind, his mantle fell, and Elisha cries out something interesting. He says, my father, my father. Remember what he said? The chariots of Israel and the horsemen. He saw these fiery chariots. The chariots of Israel and the horsemen. You say, what is that about? He picked up the mantle, went back to the Jordan River, hit the water opened up, and he walked across, and the school of prophets over there says, whoa, the spirit of Elijah is upon Elisha. They saw in him what they knew in Elijah. The story then continues as Elisha is prophet of Israel. At one point, the king of Israel is planning to go this way, and Elisha said, no, don't go that way. The king's setting an ambush over there for you. So we went a different way. Next time, went around the ambush again. Pretty soon the king said, there's a stool pigeon in my war council. They said, no, there's no stool pigeon in your war council. There's a prophet over in Israel. What you plan in secret, he knows. He tells the king. So we'll go get him. So he sends his army to surround the city where Elisha is. And Elisha's servant next morning, Gehazi, sticks his head over the walls, and his eyes bug out because here's the city, and here's his foreign king surrounding their city. And he's terrified, of course. And Elisha just says, oh, Lord, let him see. And here's the city, here's the king's army, and here's the army of fiery chariots and horsemen, the army of God, the Sabaoth, the army, heavenly armies of God. And you say, what's that about? It's about what surrounds this room. It's the spiritual realm that Hebrews 11:1 talks about. It's the assurance of things that are bigger than what you can see. It's the spiritual realm that's going to last for eternity. It's the spiritual realm where God's warfare is already complete, and Jesus described it on the cross saying, it's finished. It's done. The spiritual battle to restore a lost world to himself, purchased and paid for and completed in Calvary, is a finished thing. It's all done. It's all done for us. The question is that what Solomon was looking at? Remember what he kept saying? Dear ones, if all we see is rational, if all what we see is physical, if all of what we can touch or feel or hear or smell is right in front of us, if that's all you got, well, I hope you get hopeless. Because God can reveal to you then, if you believe that this is hopeless, then He can give you a hope that's bigger than what you can see. So I really hope that for anybody that we know, and I hope for us, that when we meet people in a place of being hopeless, what do we know? If you meet some, I'm not talking about being helpless. There are times when we are absolutely helpless. That's different. Helpless and hopeless, two different things. But when we meet people who are hopeless, we need to know this is an opportunity to say, hey, it isn't about all your eyes can see. It isn't just under the sun. There's something bigger than what's going on here. Judy mentioned John 15, and I don't know if any of you, let me find it, have memorized that verse or not, but a lot of people have. This is, I'm the vine and you're the branches. Let me read you the first verse of John 15, because it says this. I am the vine, and my Father is the gardener. He, blank, every branch in me that bears no fruit. What's the word that goes in blank? Every translation says cuts off. Okay? He cuts off every branch that's not bearing fruit. Okay? Now the word that's translated cut off, and most translations say it that way. Most translations say that it was cut off. If it's bearing no fruit, it's going to be cut off. Okay? But listen to what it says there. Every branch in me that bears no fruit. Well, that word, there's a place where Jesus says, take my yoke on you. That's the same word. Where they fed the 5,000, they went around picking up leftover. That's the same word. Where it says they were going to pick up stones to stone Jesus. Same word. Where he says to the man, take up your bed and walk. Same word. Let me give you the picture here then. Here's I got 2 grapevines that are planted. They're not yet on trellises yet. I'm trying to keep them alive long enough to get them up where I can put them on a trellis. I got two grapevines. And if you ever seen a vineyard, sometimes it's 2 bars, but sometimes 3. You have a wire here, and then a wire down here, right? When your vine comes up, you let it grow on those trellises, okay? Now you prune it back. You know why you prune a grapevine back? If you let it keep on growing, it'll spend all its energy growing branches and not growing fruit. Yeah. So you take a grapevine, grapes, and when it's got a pretty strong trunk, well then when you prune it back, it's ready to go, and it doesn't have anywhere else to go because it doesn't have all these long vines to produce the fruit out on, so it'll start producing fruit. That's what you do. Now, picture a grapevine here. Jesus is the vine, we're the branches, right? So if you have a lower limb down here and it's not on the trellis, it's laying on the ground, what will happen to it? It's still alive. It's in the vine. It what? It won't produce any fruit. It will never pollinate. It'll never produce any fruit. What do? You don't cut it off. What did you do? You lifted up 12 loaves of bread. You lifted up a stone to stone Jesus. You lifted up your bed and walked. So you lifted. Jesus, what did Jesus do the night he was celebrating the Passover? He took a towel and a bowl and went around then doing what? Washing everybody's feet. What do you do to a low-lying limb? You pick it up. You wash it off. You fasten it to the vine. I believe, this is me, I believe that's also a symbol of people who maybe are connected to Jesus, but aren't connected to the body. That is not a safe place to be. We need one another. It isn't just we're grafted into Jesus. We also need to be connected to something that makes us fruitful, and that is the gathering of God's people. It's a good thing to do. It's important. Not, as Paul says, Do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together, as is a habit of some. He talks about some people having shipwreck in their soul. We're made that way. If Father, Son, and Spirit never had an argument, right? If they said, let us make man in our image, then we're also made to be corporate. He made us in his image. He's corporate, we're corporate. We die being separated. We're at least fruitless if we're not connected. And so he raises us up, washes us off, and then he says, now you bear fruit. If you bear fruit, then it says, while branch that does bear fruit, he prunes it so it may bear even more fruit. You're already clean. You're already clean. Because the word I've spoken to you, remain in me and I will remain in me and I will remain in you. Okay. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I'm the vine, you're the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. It's important that we recognize in our time what has happened. September 1st, we're going to honor somebody's 90th birthday at our church. And one thing I think we're going to do is talk about what he's all lived to see. You know, when you were so until this happened. Things have changed in a lifetime, haven't they? I remember as a boy standing by, we had our house, then a little two-story garage kind of thing. And there's a cedar tree right there. I remember standing there one moonlit night, just being mystified by the moon. It was so far away and so untouchable. Now we got footprints, we left the flag up there. What an amazing change we've gone through in so many ways. But what has happened also around us is that people in America have become more and more skeptical of, in many cases, spiritual things that they've been told are spiritual. Let me say it another way. People are more and more skeptical of what the church has to offer. But they're still curious about spiritual things. Very skeptical of the Christian message, but very open to Eastern meditation, all kinds of things. So interest in spirituality seems to be going up. But the most frequent religious connection is N-O-N-E, none. So people are disengaging from the church, but seeking something spiritual. Now, for them to become convinced of the reality of what we have come to know, it probably won't be a knock on the door and a testimony and a conversion. At one time, you could meet people in the marketplace, witness to them, they would understand the gospel, they would accept it, respond to it, life changed. More and more, especially in the younger the generation is, it's less and less likely that there's just going to be a statement of truth and somebody's going to say, oh good, I believe that. It's not going to happen. In our age, people aren't just skeptical, they're more likely to be hardened. They're more likely to have turned things off because it didn't meet their expectations, something difficult happened, they don't have answers for a lot of things that they've struggled with. How could this happen? If there's a good God, why is there so-and-so? A lot of those things. We need to know that we can have the assurance of things hoped for. We need to know who God is. And we come to know who God is not by ourselves and not on the ground by ourselves. We need to be connected with other people. We need that encouragement. We're not made to walk alone. We're not made to grow up alone. We're not made to become strong alone. We're not made to remain strong alone. Lone Rangers in the spiritual kingdom is an oxymoron. Doesn't happen. Those two things don't go together. It's not safe to be separate. And God knows that. And so God has provided a way to come home. What Elisha was looking for was some thing that he hadn't seen yet. That's not wrong to look for that. Not wrong to ask for that. And I believe God gave him that answer for our purpose as well. Because what did Elijah say to Elisha as the evidence that he would have that double portion?
If you saw him,
if you see him going up.
Yeah.
Okay. We've said this several times before over the last several years, but the two people that went up and the Spirit was upon them was left for their successor. Moses went up, the Spirit was left on Joshua. Elijah goes up, Elisha's successor. Who are the two people speaking to Jesus at the Mount of Transfiguration? Moses and Elijah. Elijah talking about his departure, which he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. What was that departure? I've heard it preached often that was his death. No, that wasn't when he left. He was crucified, he was buried, he was resurrected, and then he ascended. He did what? What did Elijah say? If you see me going up, you've got the promise of the empowerment of the spiritual realm is bequeathed to you. When I leave, I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to leave you an orphan. I'm going to leave the Comforter. He will be your strength. So what Jesus was saying was the fulfillment of what Elijah saw in Elisha. Elisha saw in Elijah. Going up, the Spirit that was upon Elisha was left upon Elisha in a double measure. And Jesus said like this, greater things than these you will do because I go to the Father. The things that I've done, you'll do, and greater things, not meaning that any one individual in any way become God or necessarily do, quote, greater miracles. But the volume of it over the history of the church to our day, the volume of the Spirit's work through his people has been greater than what was performed in the life of Jesus. Not demeaning his deity, but defining that he walked as an anointed human being. Moses had, Elijah had, Jesus had, Jordan River, the anointing, the Messiah now. He says, what's come upon me as the Father sent me, John 20:21. As the Father sent me, I send you. I would encourage you not just to trust that there is a spiritual realm that you can't see, which is where your hope and your strength and your power is, but to seek that. To ask God to show you the truth of his power in situations that are unmanageable for you. You know, life has always been unmanageable, but sometimes you're young enough to outrun it anyway. The older you get, a little more scary it gets, right? Well, life has always been unmanageable. But the devil tempted Adam and Eve to think that their managing it would be a better deal. You that tree would be like God, no good and evil. That's always been the devil's ploy. That's always been his offer to mankind. He offers it to us. We can manage our life. No, we can't. And God is destined to bring us to the place where we'll be hopeless in our own ability to manage life. Okay? So don't be surprised if you run into people around here who are hopeless. Not just helpless, but hopeless. And we then need to encourage one another to be people of hope. And the assurance and the evidence of our hope is, you might want to go back, read Hebrews 11. That's the story of faith. There's one in there that amazes me. It says Abraham, remember God told him to sacrifice his son? Abraham believed that if he sacrificed Isaac, God could raise him from the dead. Oh, I mean, that was my son on the pile of sticks.
Yeah.
It says he believed, and it was counted to him as righteousness. That's an incredible affirmation. I'm not sure quite how to end today or how to pray, but I do know we all wrestle with a desire to have some kind of proof of what we believe. But the proof is not in what we see. Faith gives you the ability to see what you believe. Faith isn't the result of what you see. You see things differently because you believe. That's what we need to encourage one another. This thing within us that's a gift of God, faith, that clings on to God even though all circumstances look like He's not there. And there are times in our life where God's invisible, but never absent. I will never leave you or forsake you. Lord, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. As long as I'm here, God is too. And as long as we're here, Christ in us, hope of glory, God is here too. Let me just pray for us. Father, I pray that you reveal the incredible work that you did in Jesus' death and in his resurrection and in his ascension and in the power of your Spirit poured out upon your people, that we would not be alone, that we would have the anointing of Moses and Elijah and Elisha and you, Lord Jesus, to equip us and empower us and sustain us, encourage us, build us up, make us strong, keep us with all of what we need that we can't even see that we need. And we pray it, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to give you one quick story. Thursday morning, or Wednesday night, I was in Colorado. Some young men and I were talking to somebody who had hiked up a 14,000-foot peak, and they encouraged us to leave early, so we're going to leave at 4:30. Got before, and I had a headlamp, my camping lamp. I keep it the battery separate from it. Well, I put the batteries in, it didn't work. We each had 3 little flashlights. So here, at 4:30 in the morning, we're hiking up this mountain. You could see where the path went, maybe from here to the edge of the carpet. The flashlights weren't too cool. So we're hiking up about 6 o'clock. Then you begin to see a little bit more natural light. And as you did, you began to, I don't know if you noticed or not, Colorado's had some very heavy, wet, late snow. There's some places where this very steep hillside of snow turned loose. And an avalanche. It went down with such speed and such force that it went up the other bank, some places 300 feet up the other bank, and laid the trees uphill.
Oh my.
There was a 200-foot deep snow dam across this river. They're concerned about Lake City downstream. If that dam, and it was still holding water, if that dam had broke, it would have taken that little city out. But the water kind of went underneath, and so you developed a tunnel in there. The snow bridge was still there. So when we're coming back, we say, holy buckets, look at this. But what they'd done with the trail was, they cut off a limb over here and a limb over here and throw off the side. So we were walking in this devastation. You couldn't see any of it. It was black of the night. We didn't know that. And I thought about David when he says, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And for the first time in my life, I had a picture of Psalm 23 where it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of death. How many times have we been on a freeway when we're that close to death and we didn't see it? The power of God, there have been more times than one where the enemy may want to take me out and I didn't even see how much God saved me. Okay? When I was a boy, we used to go down the river bottoms. We'd climb up a long, tall, thin tree, and the other cousins start chopping it down. You'd ride the tree down. That was exciting, man. What I'm saying is this. God takes care of a lot of things we don't even see and don't need to. We don't need to. God is good. God is good. This last Sunday afternoon, we had a church on our campus. This was their last service. And a beautiful young lady who was actually born dead was testifying how much this church had meant to her. And right at the end, she said, I'm just so happy that God is God.